Honor is far from being the principle of despotic government. Fear is necessary in a despotic government. With regard to virtue, there is no occasion for it, and honor would be extremely dangerous. Welcome back. This is The Average, and I'm continuing my surface level summary of Charles Montesquieu's The Spirit of Laws, which was published in 1748, a little under 20 years before the American Revolution. Despotic governments seem pretty straightforward, terrible, and aren't worth too much attention, so let's begin. Of a despotic government, that is, a single person should rule according to his own will and caprice. The principle of despotic government is fear, but a timid, ignorant, and faint-spirited people have no occasion for a great number of laws. The principle of despotic government is subject to a continual corruption because it is even in its nature corrupt. All right, so this type of government is where one person governs everyone, much like a monarchy, and that person will use fear, which will be subject to further corruption. I can only imagine what that might be. There will be less laws because governance will be based on whim and mood, and people won't be granted protections. Despotic governments, where there are no fundamental laws, have no such kind of depositary, that is, a trusted person or thing. Hence, it is that religion has generally so much influence in those countries, because it forms a kind of permanent depositary. And if this cannot be said of religion, it may of the customs that are respected instead of laws. So I think this is saying that within this type of government, there may be a religion designed to hold the trust of the people, but this is a false institution to keep the population calm. I'm not saying that religion is just a puppet institution for despotic characters. I think Charles is mentioning that in certain points in time, a religion has been used this way. A man whom his senses continually inform that he himself is everything and that his subjects are nothing is naturally lazy, voluptuous, and ignorant. In consequence of this, he neglects the management of public affairs, but were he to commit the administration to many, there would be continual disputes among them. Each would form intrigues to be his first slave, and he would be obliged to take the reins into his own hands. It is therefore more natural for him to resign it to a vizier, which is a advisor or secretary, and to invest him with the same power as in himself. The creation of a vizier is a fundamental law in his government. So the despot, the supreme leader, doesn't care about anyone below him and will be naturally uninterested in governing, so a substitute will govern. And there will be infighting among the inner circle, causing problems that may or will trickle down to the population. So anyone in this type of hierarchy trying to work your way up to number 2 is probably not worth it, and you'll only spend the rest of your time fighting others who want to replace you. A prince of this stamp, unaccustomed to resistance in his palace, is enraged to see his will opposed by armed force. Hence he is generally governed by wrath or vengeance. Besides, he can have no notion of true glory. War, therefore, is carried out under such a government in its full natural fury, and less extent is given to the law of nations than in other states. Such a prince has so many imperfections that they are afraid to expose his natural stupidity to public view. He is concealed in his palace, and the people are ignorant of his situation. Okay, so far Charles defines a despot as likely indolent, short-tempered, warlike, and will be wrathful when their ignorance is exposed. So this is obviously a problematic government. Moving on, as soon as they have chosen a vizier and abandoned themselves in their seraglio, that is a harem or their prostitutes, to the most brutal passions, pursuing in the midst of a prostitute court every capricious extravagance, they would never have dreamed that they could find matters so easy. And the author is just restating that the despot will be a hedonist. Thus, all our histories are full of civil wars without revolutions, while the histories of despotic governments abound with revolutions without civil wars. So if you're running this type of government, expect revolutions. He does have a bit on despotic Russia. In those states, religion has more influence than anywhere else. It is fear added to fear. In Mohammedan countries, it is partly from their religion that the people derive the surprising veneration they have for their prince. It is religion that amends in some measure the Turkish constitution. The subjects who have no attachment of honor to the glory and grandeur of the state are connected with it by the force and principle of religion. So Charles doesn't seem to be a fan of religion in old Russia. Of all despotic governments, there is none that labors more under its own weight than that wherein the prince declares himself proprietor of all the lands and heir to all his subjects. Hence, the neglect of agriculture arises, and if the prince intermeddles, likewise in trade, all manner of industry is ruined. Under this sort of government, nothing is repaired or improved. Houses are built only for the necessity of habitation. There is no digging of ditches or planting of trees. Everything is drawn from, but nothing restored to the earth. The ground lies untilled, and the whole country becomes a desert. So it sounds like a despot will never bring prosperity. Commerce can't work. Even if you became a successful merchant, you lose money to arbitrary interest. Embezzlement of public money would also be natural. Also, confiscation are routine, as it is a convenient way to get money or needed stuff. He talks a bit about what little he knows of despotic czars and despots within Asia. There were attempts for a system where power would be inherited, but is usually plagued with paranoia and execution. So I would recommend you read his book. Women do fare well because in despotic governments, women do not introduce but are themselves an object of luxury. Women do not fare well. They must be in a state of most rigorous servitude. We have said that the laws were the particular and precise institution of a legislator, and manners and customs the institutions of a nation in general. Hence it follows that when these manners and customs are to be changed, it ought not to be done by laws. This would have too much the air of tyranny. It would be better to change them by introducing other manners and other customs. So if you are a despot, do not change the local manners by laws. Instead, simply introduce new manners and customs, otherwise you risk revolution, which you may win, but it will be expensive. If you are a person living under a despot, any introduction to new manners and customs may be a slick method to keep you compliant. All right, there you have it, everyone. A few blips of Charles Montesquieu's definitions about despots. A despot ultimately won't care to govern, and even if they do, it will be by fear. It will be capricious. It will be for war and other self-serving interests. There really is no room for you. There are no laws to protect you. Your life and your property can be arbitrarily taken. So to avoid this type of government, do not be timid, be fearless, do not be ignorant, learn anything, do not be faint-spirited, be brave, be strong, recognize fear tactics, and thank you for listening.